I prepared this rat for your diet today. Welcome to Kitchen Familiars. I'm your kitchen witch, Sarah.
And I'm your kitchen bitch, JP.
And this is Freddie Purrcury. Don't lay on our mics this time.
No. Freddies are familiar.
Yes.
Familiar. I didn't understand that at first.
Yeah, so, and I don't know exactly the folklore, although I should. It's wrong of me not to. They said that some animals were sent to help witches, essentially, and maybe there's also some folklore, if I'm remembering correctly, where witches could embody their familiars and go out at night, change shape, that sort of thing. But oftentimes they were magical animal assistants that people feared.
Oh, I have one of those at home.
Yes.
Freddies are familiar.
Yes, Freddie is everything. He is our overseer, he's our taste tester.
Quality
control. Today we're making a spell-binding sardine recipe for cats.
You hear that?
And we're going to use some of the same ingredients that we used last time for our magical mackerel recipe for dogs. We are going to be using the spirulina, a little bit less this time. This is 10 grams of spirulina and wheatgrass powder, 1 stalk of kale, I think 25 grams, 25 to 30 grams blueberries, quail eggs, vitamin E, and then some of the new things. Instead of using mackerel, we have switched to sardines. So this is 3 cans of sardine. They're 3.75 ounces. We are going to use some 93% lean ground beef. This is a half a pound of beef, 30 grams of pureed pumpkin, nothing else in it, 100% pumpkin. Dehydrated goat's milk. This is about 50 grams. This is going to be rehydrated with water to about 200 milliliters. Pacific oysters, 15-ish grams, about a half of an oyster there, and freeze-dried chicken hearts. Obviously, if you're doing fresh chicken hearts, this is, I believe, 25 grams fresh and 7-ish grams dehydrated. I could not find fresh chicken hearts this time around, so dehydrated is gonna have to work. And Freddie would just eat these right off the plate, so we'll have to watch him pretty closely.
Well, and for the record, he has tested and approved all of these ingredients.
Yes, he would very much like second breakfast at this point.
Second breakfast.
Cats are a little bit more difficult in a way to cook for, and a little bit less difficult in a way than dogs.
Well, they're more particular, stereotypically.
Definitely more particular. So cats that haven't been exposed to fresh food can sometimes be adverse to it. They're what's considered an imprint feeder. So if they haven't been exposed to that texture, they may not come around to that texture. You have to expose them within a window period when they're young. Get that variety in there while they're still impressionable, because as they get older, they're less and less likely to explore different textures, different flavors. I'm using sardines this time, smaller fish than mackerel, a little bit higher in some of those EPA, DHA, and amino acids that we're looking for cats. Cats, again, being carnivores like we talked about before, they cannot make a lot of the amino acids in their body that we can make. We have methionine and cysteine, we can make taurine in our body. Cats can't do that. And we didn't know that up until like 86, and so most of the kibble industry had been inadvertently giving cats dilated cardiomyopathy, which is a pretty rare form of nutrient deficient heart disease. And then once they realized, oh, cats can't make taurine in their body, then they had to go back and reformulate. But up until that point, all of these cats were dying from heart disease, which is super rare now. Where this fish is limiting in amino acids, we've got beef to make up for it, which we spoke about in our last recipe. If your meat is limiting in a certain amino acid, you want to get a different meat source in there to round out that amino acid profile. It's much more important for cats because, again, a lot of those amino acids they have not developed to put those together in their body because they don't need to. They're carnivores.
Right.
They just get it from their animal. So very important to make sure you're hitting all of the amino acid profiles, and then some quail eggs too to round out that amino acid profile. Beef is higher in zinc. Also fills out that missing amino acid profile. Kale. Cats cannot taste sweet things. Oftentimes, things like chocolate that are toxic for them are just not appealing. They're not going to go after chocolate because it's not something that they find tasty. However, they very much like not bitter chocolate, but bitter greens. That's why, like, if you have houseplants, they're often eating them.
Okay.
Hopefully, they will like the kale as much as the kale likes them. It is a beneficial fiber, again, in the gut for a healthy microbiome. Same with the wheatgrass and the spirulina and the pumpkin. Often, we have people coming in and they're looking to get their cats regular. Pumpkin is one of those things. It's amazing in the right amount. Too much of it can cause the opposite reaction. Easy on the pumpkin, you don't want too much. This is 30 grams. I think for a recipe that makes several meals, it's gonna be fine, but don't overdo it. The goat's milk is for a couple of things. Calcium content. We do get the bones in with the fish, but it doesn't bring our calcium phosphorus ratio up enough. Plus, cats love milk. So hopefully that will make our formula more palatable. Oyster, high in zinc. Same with the beef. Cats need a lot of zinc. And then the quail eggs, because these are a complete protein. Again, we're getting all of our amino acids. We're gonna add the shells in there for a little bit of calcium. And then chicken hearts for copper, magnesium, all the trace minerals. Also, heart health. Feed what your animal needs, right? So if you've got liver issues, you probably want to feed liver. If you've got heart issues, you probably want to feed heart, because cats need the amino acids that are stored in those organs to repair their own tissues.
Gotcha.
So if they're missing something like taurine and they're having heart problems, it's easiest to get it from the hearts of another creature,
Wow.
which is very witchy.
Yes.
Yeah. You eat the heart of your enemy to boost your heart.
I will remember that.
Yeah. Eating the hearts of our enemies is high on the 2025 list.
Why are you adding the vitamin E?
The vitamin E, yeah. So we said this last time a little bit, but again, it's very important that when you've got a lot of fatty acids from your fish, from your oysters, from your hearts, meat in general, that you have vitamin E to protect the fatty acids from oxidization.
Okay.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Is it true that with like raw or fresh food, with an animal who's used to eating, say, kibble, that part of it is that this is less aromatic? The dry foods are sprayed with things that make them more palatable?
That's true, yes. The dry foods are usually sprayed with a palate enhancer. I wouldn't say that it's not necessarily more aromatic, in that, like, if you're cooking it, it's still warm, it does still have a fragrance. Oftentimes with like raw food, yes, with cats, it comes out cold, they're not gonna have it, yes.
Is it safe to nuke a raw meal?
Not really.
You don't want it.
I would suggest adding like a little warm water.
Oh.
You just don't want to change the nutrient profile, because the raw food is being formulated, based on the nutrients that that raw meal would give, and anytime you cook something, it's going to change that nutrient profile.
It's going to kill enzymes.
Yeah, absolutely. And while I would love to make raw food for cats, I think that easing them into a lightly cooked diet is easier, than going straight to raw food. Because again, if they haven't been exposed to it from a young age, it can be a difficult sell.
So this is a better way to start.
Yeah, it can be. And some cats do fine, transition to raw food easily, but other cats not so much. Also, if you're concerned about raw food and contamination, or your vet is concerned about raw food and contamination, I think that cooked food is a really good middle ground. Moisture is very important, and you do get a lot more enzymes. I mean, definitely more than feeding them a bag of kibble.
You mentioned moisture. That's more important for cats than dogs?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We know very much with the science that kibble and the lack of moisture that it needs to have to be shelf stable is driving the rate of kidney disease up in cats.
And people will say, but my cat drinks all the time.
Drinks water all the time, absolutely. But cats physiologically are not designed to get the most from water that they're drinking. And if they're drinking a lot of water, it means that they are all of a sudden very thirsty, which is a bad sign.
Cats that eat dry food do drink more water.
Yes, and they do add salt to dry food to encourage cats to drink more water. But it's most efficient and most beneficial for cats to get moisture in their diet. They are truly carnivores. We haven't changed cats in the way that we've adapted dogs to living with us. You know, we've changed dogs over millennia of having them live with us so that they have more pancreatic enzyme function. They can digest some of those carbs. They are more omnivorous, right, than their ancestors were. However, with cats, we really haven't seen a change at all in their physiological nature. They don't have those enzymes to digest carbs. They don't have the insulin regulation that we do or that dogs do, so a high carbohydrate diet is really dangerous for them. It would be like having an unregulated, unmedicated case of diabetes.
And diabetes is on the rise.
Yes.
And real quick, I have so many questions for you.
Okay.
And I don't know if any of it's true, but carnivores, I've heard that their kidneys work differently. They are designed to pull moisture from food digestion.
It is true. The kidneys can digest high protein diets. To do so, they have to have more moisture because the end products of digesting protein have to be excreted in the urine to be safe. And if they're not being excreted in the urine and they're being held in the body, then that's bad news bears. So we absolutely have to have enough moisture to excrete the end products of protein digestion. If you don't have the moisture, toxins are going to build up in your body. And it's not good.
Well, that's why we need to make fresh food.
But if your budget does not allow for you to make fresh food, add water to their kibble. Or bone broth if they're not tolerating water. One of the things we're going to add today is the goat's milk. You know, anything to bring that moisture content up. Feed them canned food. There's so much misinformation out there about canned food. Canned food is high in moisture, it's high in protein, it has lower carbs, it's good for your cat.
But it's going to rot their teeth out.
It will not rot their teeth out. That's like saying brushing your teeth with a lollipop is going to help prevent plaque. Like your carbohydrate-rich dry food, no matter how much you chew it, isn't going to take enough plaque off to compensate for the amount of bacteria that's going to build up in the mouth from having high carbohydrates.
And the carbs leave the starch.
They do, and the cats don't have enzymes in their mouth to digest starch. Help. Again, we're adding spirulina here. This helps with teeth. We know that there's enzymes in that spirulina in most kelp products that help break down the bacteria that causes plaque in the mouth.
That's cool.
Yeah. We're gonna just break up this beef a little bit so that when it cooks in the crock pot, it's not just one chunk. I'm gonna add the kale in there to give it something to sort of cling to as well.
Beef and bitter greens.
Yep. If you wouldn't mind chopping up that oyster a little bit so that it gets mixed in more evenly. Got a lot of oysters left over after this. So
Fried oyster night.
I know. Perfect.
Just a rough chop.
So slimy. Into the witch's cauldron.
Do you think the greens will release moisture?
I think so. And I mean, it's all moist. It'll be fine. I'm gonna check it in a few minutes and see if maybe we need to add a little water. So we're gonna put that in the crock pot on low.
Okay.
Until it's just cooked through. Okay, so let's take the sardines. We're gonna throw those in the blender. We'll see how much this blender can handle.
All right.
Throw in the blueberries. We're gonna add those chicken hearts in there. Eggs, shell, and all.
Quail eggs.
All of them, yep. Vitamin E can go in there. Yep. The pumpkin can go ahead and go in. Do you want a little spatula? You got one? Great. Go ahead and add that spirulina wheatgrass powder.
Spirulina and wheatgrass together.
Yes. Hopefully it won't be quite as green as the last recipe we made. We're gonna add just a little bit of water, probably up to this 300 milliliter line there. And then go ahead and add a couple spoonfuls of that. We're gonna save some for the beef as well, because we're gonna blend in 2 batches. All right, then we're gonna take this over and give it a whirl. Thank you you, Vanna.
Of course. How does it work?
You push down and turn to your...
Okay, so we're just gonna pulse it.
You really want to grind those bones. Okay, so that's like a wet pate. We probably want it to be like a little bit thicker. So.
A little thicker?
Yeah, but we'll wait for our beef to get done.
Gross.
I think we should add a little bit of water here to prevent any burning on the greens and to more evenly distribute heat. There we go.
So you're browning the meat. Is it best to do it in a crock pot? Or could someone do it on the stovetop in a pinch?
Yes, you could definitely do it on the stovetop. The problem is that oftentimes you're going to want to use an oil if you're going to be doing this on the stove. The thing to consider is what type of oil you're browning it in, because it's going to change the nutrient profile of the recipe. My suggestion would be to use maybe a coconut oil and just very little of it.
Okay.
In fact, if it could be steamed, that would be better. Or if you set up the crock pot on low overnight. A lot of companies are doing what's called the sous vide, which is they're putting it into a package, they're cooking it lightly in that package. My concern with that is the plastic. Yeah, microplastics, right? They're in everything. I know we can't avoid them completely, but if we're making our food at home and we can, I would just avoid it. You want some help? Oh, you got it.
I think I got it, mostly.
Burn yourself on that hot crock pot.
And this beef took
About an hour.
About an hour
yeah,
in the
about
crock
50
pot.
minutes in the crock pot.
So set it and forget it, go run an errand.
Absolutely. Set it and forget it. Yes, so then the rest of the goat's milk, we're going to go ahead and add that in. We'll probably need some more water to reconstitute that, but let's see where we go.
Okay, so when this is finished, how much food are we gonna have?
This should make about 2.2 pounds of food, about 1 kilogram. It's probably just shy of that with some water losses from cooking.
So if my cat's about 10 pounds and their appetites vary, how much am I going to feed her? How long is it going to last? And is she going to need less than she normally would of kibble because it's more nutrient dense?
She'll probably need about as much as she would if she were eating a can of food. So for Freddie, he gets a little less than a cat his size because he's on a weight loss program. He's at 15 pounds right now, and we want him to lose a little bit of weight. His caloric intake for the day should be around 300 calories. So for this, he's getting about 65 grams a day of food. This makes about 14 days worth of food for Freddie. Because that's so long, it won't last in the fridge for 14 days. So, general rule of thumb for your home cooked food is the same for our home cooked food for human consumption, which is 3 to 5 days in the fridge in a container that has a proper seal. And then after that, you can put it in the freezer up to 6 months. Okay. Now, defrosting and getting it back up to a temperature that your cat likes is questionable because cats can be so particular. So I would recommend starting out with half of this recipe so that whatever you're feeding lasts in the fridge, or even a quarter of this recipe if you just want to try it out for a few days and see how it goes. You don't have to freeze it, you don't have to thaw it, you don't have to worry about whether your cat's going to accept it once it's been frozen and defrosted.
A couple questions. I mean, can you look at the can you're currently feeding and look at the caloric intake on that, and then you can use that as a point of reference to how much you need to feed?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Again, calories differ per can of food as well as per formula or recipe. There's several free calorie calculators online that can give them sort of a frame of reference for how many calories their pet should be eating. And honestly, doing that and knowing that your cat should have so many calories in a day means that you can come to a food store and look at the different cans and see where their feeding guidelines might not match up with what your calorie calculator has said, because oftentimes each food company uses their own set of equations, and sometimes you're feeding too much, sometimes you're feeding too little. It depends on what your goals are.
And then also, does it help to mix foods? Like to mix half some of what they're used to in with this to transition?
Yeah, you can, and I think it really depends on the animal. If you have a particularly sensitive animal, if you have a dog or cat that has undergone surgery or some other thing that has affected the gut's ability to, produce good bacteria, then I would be more cautious, definitely. But if your dog or cat is healthy and is used to variety, I wouldn't worry about mixing it in. Mm-hmm.
I have a weird question. I was thinking double boiler.
Absolutely. Yeah, and honestly, because this is not a raw formula, you probably could reheat this just fine. Now, the vitamin E content may fluctuate a little bit. Some of these things are heat liable, but if you're just warming it back up very quickly, I would not worry about it. Warm it up.
No microwave.
You could probably microwave it.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't overdo it.
And that makes it a little bit, warming it up makes it more
aromatic, absolutely. And cats, again, they are carnivorous. They like their food at body temperature. They want to feel like they just killed this thing. If that makes them happy, why not, right?
Yeah,
Let them have
absolutely.
some fun. Let them have some enrichment. They're not out killing animals. They should be able to at least feel like they've killed something.
Yeah. So we're portioning out for Freddie, who...
Ooh, that's already too much.
Oopsie.
That's like way more than his
Whoa.
daily portion.
Well,
He's going to be so mad on this diet because
Uncle
it's so
JP.
calorically dense.
Uncle JP likes to spoil. So, well, 65, right?
64 for his day.
So it'd be half that.
Yeah.
So that's about a day's worth of food.
For Freddie, which is insane. Now that I look at it, this is far too calorically dense for a weight loss diet. So let me recalculate real quick. This would be what Freddie would get for one meal. I think this is about, let's see here, 1.5 ounces.
And that's what he would get for...
This is what he would get for one meal. So he would get this
Twice a
again
day.
in the evening. Okay, now let's see if we can get Freddie to eat it.
It's like absolutely not.
Purrcury.
I will eat this kale.
You would get away from that.
He can eat the kale if he wants to. Freddie.
Sir,
Sure. Some catnip in there. You know how much money I just spent on you?
that's not a cat.
Freddie's like, yes, I will eat the rat. The rat will eat you. I prepared this rat for your diet today. If it's a flop and nobody will eat it, it's still content, and we can do another recipe that might be more palatable. Thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, Freddie did not cooperate. Freddie only likes shredded too. He won't do pate, which is probably the issue with this. He's like, I don't know, give me the whole fish, please. So this will be taken home to our cats, and someone will eat it. I have 3 cats at home, so we will have footage of someone eating it at some point, I'm sure. I'm confident. If not, back to the drawing board. We'll just make more cat food. If you want to try the recipe, we will have a link to it in the comments below. If you want to follow us, we have an Instagram. It's Kitchen Familiars. We have a Facebook, also Kitchen Familiars, and obviously we have a YouTube. If you want help deciding how much your cat needs to eat, send me a message. You can find us kitchenfamiliars@gmail.com, and we can help you figure out how many calories your animal should be having per day. That help break down the bacteria that causes plaque in the mouth.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing, you still didn't go over the ingredients.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
We can do it.
Okay.
We're chatting.
Okay. I was just like, okay, we've been filming for 10 minutes and you haven't said what we're cooking.
You can cut it back into the end.
I will.
So, sardines, EPA, DHA, Jeff, get over here. JP, sorry. You just push down.
I don't know how it works. It should probably be.
Scared me.
Power helps. Are you filming pulsing it?
So that means that wasn't even on.
It's not.
Oh my god.
Are we filming?
Yeah.
Okay. So then we should say thank you for joining us. Something, something, something.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually what you do in an outro.